everyone, my name is Emily Waldo with Wreaths by Waldo, and today I'm going to show you how to make this over-the-top Valentine's Day Conversation Heart Wreath. Yes, we're going to start with a Christmas wreath base. This is how I make a lot of my wreaths personally. A common question I get is how do we end up covering the hole in the wreath, and I'm going to show you exactly how. You're going to take your 24-inch wreath base, squish it against your body, sorry, there's a lot of grapevine debris. Squish it into an oval a little bit. Then you're gonna fluff out all the branches. And now you have a work form that really is easy to transform for all the different holidays. So the inspo pieces for this tutorial are these conversation hearts. I got these from the Round Top collection. The Round Top collection sells these really cool metal art pieces, and they're perfect for outside. Honestly, they last a lot longer because they're metal, especially if you Scotch guard them. They're really great. So I am pulling all different colors from this set of conversation hearts right here. To start, we're gonna add some deco mesh to this wreath. If you've never heard of deco mesh, it's basically a plastic fabric. So I get all of my mesh from Burlap and Bling Decor, and we're gonna use some blue, some pink, and maybe some of this wimpy green. This one I think I got from Hobby Lobby a while ago, but I just wanna use it so I can get rid of it finally. I prefer the Burlap and Bling ones. They're a lot more rigid. From here, you're gonna cut each piece into 24-inch strips. I don't really measure, but you wanna get pretty close to 24 inches. And once you cut each piece, what you're gonna do is let it roll into a double scroll, just like this. You'll end up with something like this. Don't get stuck on this part if it's really what's bothering you. I'm basically just using a mesh as a means to cover all of this dark green and as a means to glue something really fun on top. So it's hard to glue to all the branches. It's much easier to glue to this fabric. Okay, so from here, once you roll your piece of mesh into a double scroll, you're gonna pinch it, take these Christmas branches that are on the outer ring, find 2 branches and twist twice. And you could see we're making our design a little bit larger, and we're also covering up some of that green. And we're just gonna alternate between pink and blue for the outside, and then for the green, I might add little bits of it in the center. Okay, now whatever mesh pieces you have left, it looks like I only have pink, you're gonna keep making curls, but add them close to the inner ring. That way we can start to get some coverage on the center here. You can leave the hole in the wreath if you like. I like to have more surface to glue even more fun things. It really just depends on your personal preference. Now that our base is mostly covered, we can start adding all of the fun stuff. Now, before I add anything else to a design, I always add the large pieces first, and then I work outwards from there. So we've got our wreath base here. This is what it looks like from the back. You can see it's just a plain Christmas wreath squished into an oval with some mesh packed in on top. Now I'm gonna figure out how I want the orientation of all of our fun pieces. This is also from the Round Top collection. It's one of their topiaries from 2025. I love the conversation hearts. And I always like to include something sweet, so we've got a large macaroon. This is available at wreathsbywaldo.com. I'm thinking we're gonna do something kind of like this, where the conversation hearts are moving upwards and kind of towards the macaroon. Now, when it comes to metal pieces, you're going to wanna take a zip tie. A zip tie is going to secure all of the fun stuff. I'm zip tying the metal topiary around the inner ring of the wreath. Don't worry if you see a little bit of the zip tie, we're gonna cover it up later. I'm gonna zip tie it in a few places in between the hearts just to make sure it really sticks on nice. You're not able to glue metal onto the wreath, just a heads up. Hot glue and metal do not stick together, so you're gonna have to either zip tie or wire these pieces in. Now that we zip tied the large conversation heart topiary, let's zip tie the mini version of it. I kind of want this to be at an angle so that we can fit the macaroon right in the center. Again, you're going to want to wire it in. You can either wire it with a zip tie or even with some of the branches from the Christmas wreath. This is the main start of our wreath. Now that we've got the really large pieces in our wreath, let's start to add our macaroon, and then we'll start to move on to some ribbons. It's a foam macaroon. Now, I don't want to place the macaroon like this because that does a whole lot of nothing for us. We want it to be very obvious that it's a macaroon. So I'm going to add it at a slight angle, so where the customer can see a little bit of the frosting, they can see that it's green and it's glittered, and it really is the perfect shade match to both of these greens, which is why I picked it. Now we can start to glue pieces like this. Things that are foam, lightweight, you're able to glue. Just don't glue the metal. And I'm gluing that macaroon to the deco mesh. Now we can get to adding some ribbons. I've got two different kinds of ribbons here. I have a 1-inch fuchsia velvet. This one's available at wreathsbywaldo.com. And then I've got this fuzzy 2.5-inch. This one is from Burlap and Bling Decor. And for this one, I'm just gonna use it as something to add tails. Let me show you what a tail looks like. A tail looks like a 16-inch piece of ribbon. Find the center and pinch, and fold downwards. Basically, it just looks like a piece of fabric kind of pivoted at a 45-degree angle. That's a tail. And if you want, you can dovetail your ribbons. To dovetail your ribbon, you're just going to find the end, fold it like a hot dog, and cut upwards. You're gonna get a V. Fold it like a hot dog, and cut upwards. Now when you fold your tail, both of your ribbons have a nice V and they look finished. Now I'm gonna add these tails to the bottom of our wreath, because if we can, we wanna make this design even larger. Even though we started with a 24-inch wreath, if we can make it bigger and better, and again, just find 2 of your Christmas branches. Everything revolves around these Christmas branches. Fold twice. So there's some tails. I'm not only gonna add it to the bottom of the wreath, but I'm also gonna add it to the top of the wreath, again, focusing on the outer ring. You don't wanna focus the ribbons too far inwards because they get lost by the end of the tutorial. If you want, you can add some glue to help keep your ribbon tails in place. That's it for the blue ribbon. Now I'm gonna take some of the fuchsia, and for my skinnier ribbons, I don't mind if my tails are a bit longer. Again, I don't measure. I don't like to spend too much time measuring. It's up to you though. And I decided to go with a fuchsia because the center of all of the letters have that fuchsia lettering. This is a 16-inch tail, and for the tails that are at the top of the wreath, I tend to make them point upwards. So you can see we made our wreath even bigger with all of those ribbon tails. Now let's make a bow. The bow is only gonna incorporate this 1-inch ribbon here. Again, when you're making a bow, you want it to be a wired ribbon. This is a wired 1-inch velvet from my shop. What you're gonna do is you're gonna let that ribbon roll hit the floor, and we're gonna trace out a tail here. This is about an 18-inch tail. All you're gonna do is fold your first loop down. So all I did was simply fold the ribbon, and then I'm gonna pinch it in my left hand. I'm a righty, I tend to hold my bow in my left. Then trace your hand down the ribbon and fold it right back up. And you can see that's our first 2-loop bow. I will have much more intensive bow tutorials for you. I've already got one in my shop, but I definitely wanna make a spring one with you guys. Okay, once you get your first 2 loops, you're gonna have to twist for every future loop that you add on top. So you can see we're gonna twist and fold. Now that's 5 loops. I think I feel, let's just do a 6th one. Twist and fold. Once you finish all 6 loops, you're gonna take some floral wire or a zip tie, whatever your choice is. I like floral wire for my bows. Wrap it around real tight and cinch your bow with that floral wire. This is how you're gonna attach it to that inner ring of the wreath. But we're not done yet. You also need to make sure to fluff out all of your loops. This is how you get it to really look its best. Go in, fluff every individual loop. If you want, you can curl your tails a little bit, or you can wait until the end to do that. Just like that. And then from here, I have been adding my bows kind of right there along that inner ring. So this is the whole wreath now. You can see it's getting larger and larger. I want it tied right around there. Again, I always aim to tie it around the inner ring. The tails are on the outer ring. This gets wrapped around the inner ring. And if you have to, give it a good refluff. Once you're satisfied with your bow placement, get it a little bit of glue, especially those back loops. Give it just a tiny bit of glue. Okay, now we're gonna move on to the actual fun part, which is embellishing this whole design. I want this to be sweet, sweet, sweet as can be. So we're gonna start with some extra candies that I had left over from Christmas time. So I originally got this from Hobby Lobby. Any plastic ornament will work. You can either take a candy, take off the little ornament piece with some wire cutters. I wanna glue this maybe next to the macaroon. I don't want it flush in line like this. I think that's a little too symmetrical looking, but perhaps something like that. Or if we're feeling really out there, maybe in the center of the bow. I'm gonna hold off on this though, because this is quite long. Let's definitely go in with some lollipops. These are some lollipop picks that I got from Burlap and Bling Decor. These pink ones, these are some of my favorites. And then this blue one right here is from my shop, wreathsbywaldo.com. Now I only have one blue lollipop, so what that means is I need to look at all of the blue that's on this design, and where am I lacking in some blue? Probably right there. So I'm gonna pop that lollipop right there. Again, give it some glue, make sure it's glued to that mesh. And then I've got the pink, so we can take the pink ones and maybe add one up here, and then to balance it out, maybe somewhere down low. This is where you can really add your own style to it. If you want, you don't even have to use a candy. You could just take a random pink ornament. These were in my shop. I'm currently sold out, but you can pop these sort of in between lollipops just to give it something to where it looks like bubble gum, or just to really give this piece some structure too. I like when the shapes look like they're poking out at you, but again, that's just a personal choice. See how you can even use an ornament to prop behind some items. So for example, if I want these conversation hearts to look even more forward towards the audience, I could take this ball and just glue it underneath. Now it's time to incorporate my favorite part, which is the sprays. You're really gonna see a huge difference here. I've got this macaroon spray, which was available in my shop. I believe I'm currently sold out, but any sort of sweet will work. And again, you could pop in a different ornament if you want. I like to leave the spring on there and use it to my advantage so that we get a little bit of life as they poke out of the design. And again, I'm just sticking them in between deco mesh. That's the key here, because you're gonna need the mesh. Really sweet. If you want, you can stop here, but obviously I like to have a good time. I'm gonna also add, because since it's a Valentine's Day piece, I'm gonna take some of these pink heart sprays as well. These are also in my shop, and split them into smaller sections. And I'm gonna focus these mostly on the outside, but don't forget to incorporate some of the sprays on the inside of the design too. You don't want them to just kind of circle around. You want them to look like they belong. So I'm also adding it closer to the inner ring, like right there, all in different directions. You can also add things like this. These are called curly sprays, and they are exactly that. They're a spray that's quite curly. Now I like to take my curly sprays apart for wreaths, and I cut them into individual pieces. On a tree, I'll normally keep them intact. And again, I'm just tucking them wherever I find a break in all of the mesh, particularly around the outer ring. And then I'm just letting it do its thing and adding little dabs of glue to keep it in place. Look at all that extraness we're already getting out of this design, just from a few of these sprays. Again, don't forget about the inside of the wreath as well. Lastly, since Valentine's is a winter holiday, I'm gonna take some of these white glitter fern sprays, and I think I'm just gonna add these around the inside of our design to help blend everything together. Because you can see we have a ton of pink in this wreath, so I wanna break it up just a little bit with a couple of these white sprays, and these will help cover up those original zip ties. Again, this part's optional. And And there you have it, guys. This design took me about 45 minutes, but it might take you a little bit longer if it's your first time making a wreath. That is okay. I hope you enjoyed this process, and just know a lot of this stuff is honestly leftover Christmas. So dig around in your Christmas supplies and figure out what can work for either different Candyland Valentine's themes, or this is even super applicable to Easter time. But how I would normally display this is I would just take a wreath hook from Michael's or the dollar store and hook it around the outer ring. And that is how I would display this piece. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know if you have any questions or if you plan on making your own. And be sure to subscribe for more tutorials from Wreaths by Waldo.